All right, well, welcome everybody to the August 2023 Hangout. We've got a bunch of updates on what happened with Frontend Masters this month, and then I've got a few industry updates I'll go through at the end of the Hangout. So, looks like we've got one quick question in here. How did the name come about? The first workshop series was actually in 2011, 2012. So it was meant to be a one-off event. I had spoken at like 60, 70 different conferences around the world. And, back in the days of jQuery and SVG was getting full cross-browser support, I spoke a lot about SVG and that kind of thing, and built a lot of vanilla JavaScript apps, jQuery apps, that kind of thing. And I enjoyed running conferences because a lot of people got to connect. They got to see some cool stuff, got to meet other people in the industry. And I still love that about conferences, but it wasn't really fulfilling that itch I had to really teach. And, not just me teach, but I also wanted to learn. I wanted to learn from the caliber of people that I saw on the stage at conferences, but I wanted to learn in depth, actionable skills that I could actually use on my projects. And so from there, that's where I moved from just speaking at conferences and running conferences to teaching workshops. And the first workshop series was just a series of 6 workshops that I taught. So I taught in the morning, like, 9 a.m. to 1 or so. And I was stringing together all the different skills that I felt like a professional needed to know at the time. So I was teaching some JavaScript basics and then kind of got into the frameworks at the time. But through the conferences, I met all of these different, amazing people. And I was like, well, let's do a workshop series where each person that has the expertise can teach that specific topic and go in depth in that day. And that became a workshop series, which then, well, these people are, front end related, and they're masters of their craft or masters of the specific topic. So that's how Frontend Masters came to be. Is it was actually a one-off series of workshops. It was 6 workshops. So I did 6 spanning 2011 to 2012. They happened, I think, every other week, and then did the same thing in 2012. Then one more in 2013, and then because like those were sold out and they started to get more niche on different topics, people wanted the videos. And that really was the genesis of Frontend Masters, was in like 2013, 2014, where people wanted the information from the workshops, but they wanted to watch it on their own schedule or on their own time, where, they have to physically be at that spot at that exact moment in time. Obviously, we did it in Minneapolis. So if you weren't in Minnesota, you wouldn't be able to get this knowledge. So that, 2014 was really when the video platform was, formalized and launched. So there is maybe my medium answer to where did the name come from, was really like shifting from conferences to workshops and then knowing the most famous people at the time in front end. And to me, they were definitely, masters of their craft. So that's where it came from. Yeah, hopefully that answered your question. As far as updates on Frontend Masters, one of the cool things that happened this last couple of weeks is we hired a senior software engineer. His name's Brian. That's our second hire in the last like month and a half, which is pretty cool. We released 4 new courses, 3 by Maximiliano Furtman. So the Vanilla JavaScript, you might not need a framework course, is doing quite well. And then the tour of web capabilities is cool because it's just like all different browser APIs that are either being shipped soon or, things that have been shipped but don't get a lot of usage, or people don't even know they exist. Things like Bluetooth and sensors. And I don't know, there's a lot of, interesting APIs. I was looking at the web share API. No reason to not use that today. There's some really good APIs in there. And then a first look at ChatGPT or the Open AI API and how to integrate those into your apps, or that API into your apps, and then the practical CSS layouts course, which I love because it's just, take the template and code it out, and not using any fancy frameworks or anything, any abstractions, no build tools, nothing like that. It's just like vanilla CSS, which I love about that course. And then we have it technically released last month, but the hard parts of UI development really, took the platform by storm last month. There was just so many people watching that course, tweeting about it. We posted like a little promo video of Will teaching with his, signature blackboard, and they got like over 500,000 views. I think it was like probably the most viral informational post or whatever video like I've ever seen on Twitter, especially tech Twitter. The fact that it's informational and got that many views.
What a beautiful job, everybody. That is our update DOM function. Finished running. We exit our find div execution context. We exit our update DOM execution context. And we have made our changes. And we got a beautiful description in JavaScript of what we wanted to display on the page with dynamic data. Imagine HTML, but you could have variables in it. That's all we've been trying to get to. Punchline. Descriptive of what's going to show up on the page, but with data that can change. Because what are the two things user interface is trying to do? One, what's the first thing?
Display content.
And two is to let the user change the content. Change it, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we had with HTML beautiful techniques for displaying content. Put it on the page in the order you want to display in. If you want it inside of something on the page, put it inside of that stuff in the code. Display content was easy, but we didn't have any data. And there's no such thing as content being changed by the user's action and what they see changing without there being associated corresponding data. Unfortunately, that data lives in a totally different runtime, that of JavaScript. And the flow back and forth, particularly given there's also kind of persistent state here in the DOM, the flow back and forth was extremely hard to maintain mentally. So instead we said, one simple rule, users can only in the handlers update, or we as developers can only write code to update underlying data and then have a single function flow it through. Only think in terms of underlying data must describe all view, all stuff the user sees, must have corresponding underlying data such that we can see exactly where our consequences, exactly what our change is based and caused by the underlying data flowing through to the view. It's one way of providing that restriction that makes our code predictable. I know where my output on the page comes from. It's my single function running through from underlying data. I don't have to reason about if the user clicks on that, then swipes that, then given all those things, I'm going to change. No. Just change data, and based off that data, display content. Almost see it as a submission, and then based off that, display it. What that also gave us was the ability to describe as an intermediary step in JavaScript what content we wanted to have displayed off that data. And we did exactly that with our visual or virtual DOM. It allowed us to only think in terms of one description and a bunch of conditional displaying of the underlying data, including whether or not to display divs, whether or not to display content. And then we realized we were still wiping our entire DOM as though we didn't have a full archivable history of what was actually going to be displayed on the page in our JavaScript, where we could then compare those two collections of elements with their instantiated data and decide what actually changed, which we did. And from that, diffing, that algorithm that did the comparison, we only made the actual changes necessary to the real C++ elements.
So it's pretty cool, and I know people have been getting a lot of value from UI, the hard parts, because it it really kind of breaks that down to, or a UI down to like, here's the data, and then I want to change the data and have it reflect in the UI, and here's the way I could do it without any abstractions, and then kind of building in he ends at a solution kind of similar to React with, JSX and DOM dipping. Let's see, we got a question here. Are you hiring more people? Yeah, we are. However, the next 2 hires we're looking for are a lead product designer. I think you might have noticed that, our design is good, but it hasn't really evolved too much. Obviously, the software has evolved because we're basically half production, video production. We produce hundreds and hundreds of hours of video, all the time. And then on the other end, we basically had to rebuild everything that Netflix has, from the website, the marketing website, to the actual course player that's all custom, and then the mobile apps and the like backend dashboard that it's kind of like WordPress's administration interface, to all the different experiments that we have going on. It's a lot of software. So we end up being pretty much all developers or all video producers. And so we're trying to elevate the company by bringing in a product manager, somebody who's able to do more of the kind of high level planning, making sure that we're fielding customers' requests, which, by the way, we're doing a lot of customer interviews over the next couple of weeks. So if you haven't scheduled a feedback session, I'll post the link in Discord so you can give us your feedback. And we're collecting feedback and making sure that we're planning and prioritizing well. And then, yeah, obviously we want to get somebody who's like actually leading design, because right now it's basically developers having to, use the assets that we have. We do have somebody who does have design skills on staff, but, it's a small company, so he's doing multiple other things. So we just need that role, but we've got an awesome team. It's fun. So the next thing we've got going is we've recorded a new project, or I posted on Twitter and I posted on LinkedIn a kind of behind the scenes of our super secret project, but I'll just tell you what it is. It's a podcast. So when teachers are in there recording their workshops, we set up like a whole new studio where, yeah, I'll be kind of sitting across from the instructor and going through a podcast. I think a lot of people have asked us for a podcast, so it'll be just a different side of the teachers that people have never seen. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So we recorded the first episode. I think it went really well. And then we've got some more coming up that we're going to record. And yeah, that's going to be fun. We have a bunch more fun workshops coming up. We've got Scratch for Kids, where we're going to have like parent-kid combos in the studio. We're going to teach like how you would go about teaching Scratch for, especially, we have a lot of parents in Frontend Masters and people who want to get their kids into coding and that kind of thing. So yeah, Scratch will be really fun. And then the hardware with Arduino, and then Electron. People have been wanting an Electron update, so we're going to do that. All right, so any plans on creating a course on Solid.js? Well, we do. Ryan Carniato came and he taught on Solid.js, and I really like his style because he taught reactivity from a very fundamental level and how Solid works with using signals. And now all these other frameworks, like I know Preact integrated signals, Angular is integrating signals. So that reactivity model of wiring a piece of data straight to the DOM, and when that data changes, only the associated DOM updates, I think is a pretty awesome mental model. And I think Solid.js ends up winning in a lot of the performance benchmarks because of that approach. So yeah, check out Ryan Carniato's course. on reactivity. Are there prerequisites needed to participate in any given workshop? That's definitely a case-by-case basis, yeah. So, like, we have a JavaScript VM under the hood workshop coming out by Misko Avery. That's going to be pretty advanced. You would probably want a intermediate level of JavaScript before you participated in that one, but I think, yeah, you would just have to look at the workshop topic, and then if you go to the workshop page and at the, like, who is this for, it kind of usually describes the prerequisites for whatever workshop that you want to participate in. Any plans for systems design on the front end? Any suggestion on how or what to think while designing a whole project? Yeah, there's very few content creators out there that are focusing on systems design for the front end specifically. So yeah, I went through and kind of like found all the creators, watched all their content and that kind of thing. And I think I found a really good person. He works at Meta and he has a series on the system design, for instance, the Facebook like home feed or news feed. So he has a whole like systems design content around that, and obviously works for, Facebook Meta. So he's well qualified to teach that. So, and he's also like a Frontend Masters power user. He's watched tons and tons of courses over the years. So that's on the roadmap, but it'll probably be early 2024, because if you look at frontendmasters.com/workshops, we have a lot of stuff coming up. And the whole 2023 calendar is pretty full at this point. So the answer is yes. We'll definitely do systems design, but it probably won't be this year. It'll probably be early next. So, but you can look forward to that because I think it's going to be awesome. Is there any roadmap? Is there a roadmap on taming and riding on top of AI-powered web development? Well, we've got the ChatGPT OpenAI course that we just launched. And then we also are working on a Next.js course, which uses a LangChain and does like sentiment analysis on it. All of our instructors are pretty much using, some form of like Copilot when they're, occasionally they'll turn it off for workshops because, it's better to really understand the code that you're writing. But yeah, some of this stuff can be super helpful. So we'll just be continuing to integrate it into our curriculum. Our instructors use it, and we'll keep evolving both the platform and the courses using the tools as they keep coming out. So yeah, let's see what else. The Last Mile documentary was sweet. We launched that a couple of weeks ago, and turns out pretty much nobody knew that organization existed. Teaching prisoners how to code is a super worthy cause, and I think it's cool that we're able to bring some attention to that organization. And it sounds like members are, teachers and members of our community are interested in getting involved with them. So they're setting up some sort of path to volunteering, which will be pretty cool. And then a fun personal note, I hosted a barbecue actually at my house. There was like 25, 30 people from the company, basically the entire team and all their families. It was fun. It was the first time we've all gotten together in a long time. Obviously, some of the company works basically remote full time. So it was just kind of cool to get everybody together. It was very fun. And then with that, with the new hires that we've made, we'll probably expand our office space a bit so that we can house everybody in one office. I would say that we're mostly remote, but a couple of days a week, especially the product manager and the leadership, we find that it helps to get together. Since we're all in Minneapolis, we go into the office like I'd say about twice a week or so. But yeah, the dev team is primarily remote, and same with production. So, but obviously workshop days, we have to be in the studio. And it's nice to have like a place that we can all come to and collaborate occasionally. Yeah, I think that's it for Frontend Masters updates. Looks like we've got some more discussion going on about AI. What I feel is that AI won't replace our jobs, but devs who use AI will replace those that don't use AI. I think with anything, tools are helpful. And so if you figure out how to use these tools to be more productive, then of course you're going to have a bit of an edge, I guess you would say, against other developers. But I'd like to look at the fact that if a tool can make us more productive, absolutely go ahead and use it and learn how to leverage it. I think the developer community is, if there's something useful, we'll grab onto it. And I don't think that a lot of us are resistant to change, because this whole being in this position or this industry, we're used to change. So any new tool that comes along, we're just going to figure out how to leverage it and become better developers, I think. So I'm pretty optimistic, I guess. As far as industry news, the Arc browser reached version 1. I don't know. Are any of you using Arc? I'd be curious to know. It's definitely on my list to like deep dive. I know it's essentially Chromium under the hood with like a different UI. I think people like tabs on the side is the number one thing that people kind of talk about when they tell me like tabs on the side or like game changing. I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious if any of you use it or have tried it out. No Arc here yet. Okay. Well, seems like a cool new take on a browser. I'll definitely be checking it out. Sounds like Dan Abramov left Meta. Someone asked me about Dan Abramov earlier, and yeah, he's never taught on the platform. I've extended an invite, so he's got an open invite for sure. But yeah, I haven't heard much from it. I think most of the stuff that he does, he did a JavaScript like written course with an illustrator a while back. I know that Anjana Inner Fundamentals course promotes that, so I think he likes doing a lot of written stuff. Obviously, he tweets constantly about everything React related. Default said I use Arc. It's fine. It has tons of cool features built in, but I don't really use them. So it's pretty much just Chrome browser for me. Yeah, that's kind of what I looked at it as. It'd be interesting if there was like a killer feature, but it seems like tabs on the side is the killer feature that people are talking about. It's not really driving me to change a browser over that. I think the big like drama that's happening over the last month is this whole web environment integrity API. I don't know if you all have seen it, but essentially it's kind of like a fingerprint. From what I understand, I think people are pretty upset about it because like the Freedom Software Foundation basically said it's like an all-out attack on the free internet. It's something that I'm definitely looking into. And then there's a new image format called JPEG XL. It's interesting because I think the last new image format we've gotten was WebP, and we use that all the time on Frontend Masters. Basically, essentially all of our images are WebP at this point, because it's just the images end up being really high quality for very low file size. So we switched over to WebP. I think that's it for August. Look forward to the Go Fundamentals course and the Web Performance course coming out in the next day or two. Thanks all for hanging out. Any final questions? Where can I watch previous Hangout sessions? So on YouTube, I've been posting them there on the Frontend Masters YouTube. So there's a Hangout playlist with all of the past Hangouts. Any plans to have a course taught by your staff on how we optimize Frontend Masters itself? We've definitely talked about it. This comes up every Hangout where, I talk about, kind of our approach of using data attributes to, build declarative UI in vanilla JavaScript. It's interesting. The HTMX approach is probably the closest to kind of like what we've done with some of our UI components. There's a vanilla JavaScript to do MVC. If you Google that, there's both a blog post and a repo that I put together in there. There's some components that use data attributes to make declarative UI components with vanilla JavaScript. So here's the repo, the to do MVC vanilla JavaScript. And I wrote a blog post about the approach, and then we ended up starting to layer in just, vanilla TypeScript on top of some of our components. We've migrated some of them to TypeScript, and then also we started using lit HTML, which is there's the lit framework for web components, but lit HTML is just one package, I guess similar to React DOM, but it allows you to use just template literals, and it'll only render the changes in a specific part of the DOM. So you're not blowing out everything every time that you're throwing a template literal at a piece of DOM. So we used lit HTML in a data grid component that we built. But yeah, other than that, it's just vanilla JavaScript, leveraging server rendering as much as we can. It uses Hugo for that server rendering. And then, just basically vanilla Go on the back end with, very few packages, similar to how we built the front end. So yeah, it'd be interesting if Brent, our CTO, could kind of talk about our back end philosophy, because, I'm not a Go developer myself, but I feel like we have the same mindset when it comes to the front end and the back end. It's use vanilla as much as possible, as minimal dependencies, and just use good patterns. So anyways, I do have some notes, but it's hard to find time. So maybe this winter. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and I'll see you for the next one. So thanks. Peace.